The 3764 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Hit it, Elvis. You got it.
Hey guys, it's Elvis back on tour coming to you from Huntsville, Alabama. We are at what is now the Propst Arena, and in Elvis's day, it was known as the Von Braun Center. Elvis came here in May, June of 1975 and did 5 amazing back-to-back sold-out shows. He came back in September of 1976 and did 2 more shows. We started working on this video several months ago, and with the coordination between us and the staff here, it's been amazing. They have gone out of their way to place photos on all the marquees outside and on the marquees inside. And it's just really exciting that we see that when we come here, because truly Elvis is back in the building. What we're more excited about is when we go in the building today, we're not going to be the ones telling you about what happened here, as we usually have to do. We're going to let the people that were here in 1975 do that for us, and the people that were here in 1976. We're so excited because today we're just packed with Elvis information. We've got, everybody knows Keith Alverson, one of the greatest photographers that ever took a picture of Elvis, that took so many great photos that we appreciate today. He's going to be here. We're going to talk to him. George Hill, another one of the greatest photographers that took the pictures of Elvis in this building. We've got Keith Alverson's wife, Marsha, who's going to tell us a few stories in here. We've got Keith Alverson's brother, Bruce, who took the 8mm film in here. We've got some other folks that we're going to keep as a surprise that are just going to be extra icing on top of the cake. And we're just so excited about getting inside, and we think you're going to think that this is one of our best videos. So stay tuned and enjoy what you're getting ready to see.
The Von Braun Center opened in 1975, just 2 months before Elvis's performances in May and June. During Elvis's shows in 1975 and 1976, the concerts were at capacity, but since multiple renovations, the capacity of the arena has risen to 8,500. As part of one renovation, the original arena has been encased by a newer facade on the exterior, limiting the view of the original arena from the outside.
So for our segment that we usually do in our videos where we tell you about how Elvis entered the building, we always know that 100% of the time Elvis was always taken in through an overhead door and then taken to the room before he went on stage. And so today we're here at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and instead of us trying to figure out what happened back then, we got Keith Alverson here that took pictures of Elvis actually entering into the building, so he's going to tell us exactly what happened. Keith, you want to tell us what you saw that day?
Yeah, this was June 1st, the matinee show, 75. And at that time, all these buildings wasn't here. So the Hilton Hotel was right straight across the street. I'd say it was within a quarter of a mile from here. And so when he started out, he wasn't in a limousine or anything. He was just in a plain sedan. So I could see him coming through the parking lot, you know, and then when he got about 20 or 30 feet from me on my left here, I started shooting the Super 8 footage, and as he went by, you could see him sitting in the middle, in the back seat. Joe Esposito was on the right, on my side, and I think Red was on the other side. But you could see his collar, his sunglasses, and he kind of waved at somebody on that side over there, and they took him straight into this iron door here. So they went all the way in, and of course, before he got out, they lowered the iron gate down so you couldn't see him get out. And then after the show, I came back around here, and they had the sedan car pointed out, of course, but it was in there. It was in there at least 10 feet from that door, and you could see him coming with the entourage, getting in the back seat, and then they just whisked him right out of here, back to the hotel.
Right. Because
he had his evening show in 3 or 4 hours, so he had to go back, get some rest, take a shower, change suits. And but it's amazing how it's all changed, and it's so cool to relive all that.
As mentioned before, the renovations changed many parts of the arena from its original state. Another notable difference is the dressing room that Elvis would have used.
The rooms that he would have gone in to meet with the police chief and the police chief's wife would have been over here, but those rooms no longer exist. Through renovations, they've basically been, what they call blown out. They were destroyed, and new rooms have been placed here. It was believed to be that the rooms where he went prior to the show were over here. This definitely was not one of the rooms. These are part of the new renovation. So basically, after Elvis being in the dressing room for just a few minutes, he would have come back here. There was a wall back here that would have been to my right that would have prevented anybody from seeing him, and then curtains would have been used in the other places. And it's been explained to me by Keith Alverson that basically this is the door that the car would have come in. And it would have sat right here behind the stage. And then when Elvis was done in the dressing room, he walked back here, and it would have been a curtain that you see in the footage. There would have been a curtain right across here, and then you see the curtain pulled, and then Elvis would have come out just like this onto the stage, up the stairs, and perform the show.
So he came right out of this. The car was right on the other side of this iron gate right here. And when he walked straight towards me, I was sitting right on that aisle seat, and I just said, I gotta go for it. So I just stood up, and I held my hand out like that, and he saw me, and he walked straight to me. I mean, and when he's walking out, the crowd is just going nuts. The flash bulbs are going off, and it's like, it's a surreal type thing. It's like you don't even know you're there.
Oh, see, it's easy rider. Oh, see what you have done. I said, see, it's easy rider. Oh, see what you have done. Girl, you made me love you. Now the night of the man has gone. What I say? Well, I'm going away, baby, and I won't back to fall. Well, I'm going away, baby. Yeah, I won't back to fall. If I find a good girl, won't be back at all. What I say? Well, I'm going away, baby. said, see right. I said, see right. I said, Two, three, 4. Ah, see, easy right. I didn't see. Hey.
All right, so we're joined here today by Keith Alverson's younger brother, Bruce Alverson. Bruce, thank you for coming. And at first, I thought it was just going to be Keith and Marsha, but I was real excited to hear that you were coming along, because you have a little bit of a different perspective on this. You were the one, he was shooting the film, the photography part of it. You were doing the 8mm. Talk a little bit about that. And actually, what's cool about this is we're sitting pretty relatively close to where you were that night, right?
Yes, yeah, right where the stage where he come out. It was happened to be a good night that night in Huntsville. He had wore premier suits, 2 or 3 of them that during that course of that week. But that night seemed to be special because everything seemed to fell in place as far as Keith, my brother, being the first one that actually shook his hand first, and then going on into the rest of the show. I'm actually filming his future wife from 4 years sooner than they met, so that was kind of strange, you know, and so that was a special night.
I bet it was.
It was sort of like, does this happen like this? Is this a coincidence? It's just weird.
It is.
Because I'm seeing no footage of his wife. For some reason, I just took more footage of him taking up with people on stage, which I'm thinking to myself at the time, I don't know if Keith be wanting this. He may be wanting him just do action stuff. He may not want this talking stuff, but that as it turned out, after all the next few years, we found out that he meets Marsha, which was 5 seats away from him. And so all this comes back, and his wife realizes, she said, well, the footage that is so extensive that shows just about the whole thing, it's actually my brother-in-law now.
Right.
So yeah, that was a very special night, and it probably is between all of our family the best.
Right.
It just seems like you hear everybody that did anything in the South. Huntsville was, because of, you know, the basic thing. I'm sure you talked to Keith about the lighting. The stage was low, and everything was just set up just right. And but it was kind of strange trying to get used to taking the video, because here it is, we're having to smuggle in a tape player. So my mom's pocketbook happens to be extra thick, and I think the movie camera was in there, and then Keith, you know, he smuggled his camera in. He just had to look fat a couple of times going in or whatever, you know. So yeah, I mean, I just got started doing that. And Keith had always said, you don't mind taking these movies, do you, or anything? And it, you know, and it's sort of at first, you're constantly looking through the camera. You're kind of thinking, you're kind of missing the show somewhat, because you don't really get to experience everything. You're just looking through that like a tunnel vision, just at that. But after we get them back home and you saw what we had, we said, yeah, we just got to keep trying to continue to do this.
And especially with what you know now, how important this stuff is. And I thanked Keith up there, and I'm going to thank you as well, because you guys, you know, in some way, you paid a price, like you just said. You couldn't enjoy the show, but you know what? And I use this phrase a lot. I tip my hat to you, because if you're not there with that, just like he's not there with that camera, we don't get to look at those pictures. We have moving pictures of Elvis because of you. Because that was hard to come by, because if you know, his management didn't release, footage of him in concert,
Yeah.
you didn't see it
Right.
unless it was people like you. So we
Yeah.
thank you for that. And I'm sure I'm speaking for hundreds of thousands, probably millions of fans that would say, if they were here, they would say, thank you for getting that film.
It's just one of those. It's just one of those times I felt like. I mean, that's probably our favorite. That's probably all of us. Our whole family had always said that '70s tour, coming through all of this, was probably, we always look back and say it's our favorite time
One
of
the
our
best.
life.
Right.
Because it's very unfortunate that everybody loved Elvis.
Yeah.
And it's like I would never have got to experience that being 15, 16, when I was starting to do that. I mean, here it is, I'm just getting my learner's license, so I know I'm not going to see many. So I always say, you take the shows that I went to 75, that's probably half of what I saw. I mean, I saw him 35 times, but probably 16, 17 of those are during the 75 tour. So I don't know anything else what to say. It's just when I do, I'm looking at that door right there, and I'm just visioning like I said, I think he had like a piece of gray tape on there. I know it was for the Sunday show, the Blue Silver Eagle show. But I just remember when that spotlight was on it, and I go, okay, I got to start focusing it and just get it clear. Because I said, when he popped out with that Indian suit, I'm saying, never seen this one. And it's just, I don't know, the hairs on your arms just raised big time.
Yeah, and let me ask you, because you were here, when I saw that footage for the first time, and I didn't know if it was because maybe the footage was sped up, because a lot of times people can speed up photos.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me on that show with the chief suit when he came out of there, it seemed like he came out of there like a caged tiger. I mean, he looked like, just cut me loose, I'm going to tear this place apart.
It did. I mean, I guess that was at the beginning of a tour, and see, it always seemed like if you can catch him at the beginning of a tour, he seemed like he was in really good spirits, and that particular one, like you say, it's almost like you said, he got to where he shook hands and he got back on and put the guitar around before you turned around. In most shows, it takes him a while, but just depends on, I guess, how many hands he's shaking. But I know here in Huntsville, people here were just, I mean, it's either Huntsville or Atlanta that I remember that the fans were always giving him gifts. I mean, it's almost like he couldn't hardly get them fast enough. I mean, he'd hand them and he'd look at them. He didn't have time to take too much time, but he'd hand it back to Charlie. So it was sort of like, so it's just like Atlanta fans and Huntsville fans were just awesome. And I think that's the reason he always come back to Atlanta and do, more than just one show like at this town. He'd do one, but always Huntsville. It's always end up doing 3 here, 4 or 5, So yeah, it was.
I wanted to ask you one more question before we finish up, and is that, and I was talking to Keith about this during our interview. One of the things that Michael and I like to do with our channel, Elvis Back on Tour, we started this because we wanted to document these buildings, and we wanted to, whenever we can, take folks back that were either there, folks that work for Elvis. We took Estelle Brown back to Shreveport.
Right,
We did that video.
Great job, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. And that's the keystone of what we do is, anybody can drive by and take a picture of the outside of the building. We try to bring fans in and interview folks like yourself and get the story. You tell me. I wasn't here. I want you to tell me what it was like. So when we do that, what we try to do when we can is we try to bring a soundboard in from the exact show that was played here. We try to get some pictures.
Yeah.
The staff here, as you could tell, has been incredible to us. Samantha, that is the director here, has done a phenomenal job with what she's allowed us to do. So with that being said, we play a soundboard from that weekend that you were here.
Right.
We've got photos that your brother shot flashing on the screen, that George Hill shot flashing on the screen. What did that feel like for you? 49 years, almost to the day. We're only outside of about a month of it being from exactly to the day. So 49 years. Can you just share your thoughts and feelings on that?
It's like, it's just like I was telling George Hill today. It's almost like, you know, Elvis died so young, and then all those shows, it's almost just like that was another time, you know, because, you know, there's certain things that you'll say, well, it don't seem like it's been 50 years. Right. Well, this sort of, in a way, in some ways seems like it. It just almost seems like it is. It's like you're in another lifetime. Mm-hmm. And because there is sometimes, you know, it's just like anything, like a dream. You lose something after you wake up from a dream, and it's like you do lose a lot. And that's what I wondered when we was going to do this. How much was we going to try to remember, especially if you ask specific questions. But again, those will, I mean, like I said, it makes me kind of get emotional, because it, like I said, again, it does go back to where that's our favorite time of everything.
We truly hope, Michael and I truly hope, that we've been able to, for everybody, but especially yourself, that we've been able to capture some of those memories and, you know, bring back some good memories for you. And we can't thank you enough, and it's been our pleasure. And thank you so much for coming along, and it's been a pleasure spending the weekend with you and hearing what you have to say.
Well, I'm glad you guys do this, because it's like there's not enough of this kind of stuff, and there's people, believe me, that are still hungry for this kind of stuff. Right. You know, there's people out there that's got stuff like, you know, this is where plane crashed for this artist, something like this. Right. But this I like, because, like you say, you can get firsthand, right to the source. Yeah. The other is sort of speculating. This
right.
is more like, you know. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff people are still hungry for. So I'm glad you guys do this and just continue doing it.
You and I've talked about this several times before last night, but the story, and we kind of reenacted it out here earlier, and we're later in the interview we're going to get into what we did just a little while ago as far as music. But I tell the story about, it's amazing how in 1975 you were here, Bruce, your brother, was here filming. The lady that would later become your wife was sitting a few seats down from you. Yeah. You did not know that, obviously. No. A good friend of yours, Bennie Jacks, was in the building, sitting up in section, I think she said 202 or 203. Yeah. George Hill, who became one of your best buddies, yeah. and as far as photography and just one of your best friends, yeah. was sitting right over here, and none of y'all knew each other, and now you guys are some of the best friends. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's just really strange. Marsha was sitting, I think she said, I was in seat 1 on the aisle, and she was on, I think, seat 7. So there's 5 or 6 seats in between. And when she went up to the stage, I didn't know who she was, and I knew she was up there, and she gave him something, and I took that shot. And then after years later, she'll say, well, why didn't you include me in there? Well, the secret to that whole thing was, when I look back, that shot that I took as soon as she went up there and gave him the button, that was the last picture on that 36 roll of film. So as soon as I took that picture, I had to put the camera in my lap and reload, roll that film out of there while she's up there. See, I didn't see it probably. I was sitting there, and I got to where I knew how to do it in the dark. So I was unrolling that and reaching in my pocket, getting the new roll. I had the new rolls in the right and then the used ones in the left. And so I had to put that one in there and sit, I could probably do it looking at her and whatever, and then rolling the new one. By the time I got that ready to go, she was gone. So that's what happened. And why I didn't get her. George got her pretty good, but that was, see, if you had the digital cameras then with a 35 millimeter digital, oh, you could have took 500 pictures.
Now we are going to have Keith's wife, Marsha, share her stories about her interactions with Elvis.
Row of people, you know, and how are you going to get his attention? So he thought it all up and said, let's put a button. And I had a little friend had given me that button long ago. And I said, what about this button? Don't you think this would be a good button? And he said, yeah. So he rigged up the batteries and the light on it, and it worked because Elvis noticed it. It was dark, and you know, you linked something on the front row, and he saw it. He just noticed it. It's kind of like he gave me the okay, like, you know, just a minute. Let me get through with what I'm doing, and I'll see about that light.
Right.
But he didn't say all that. You could just tell in his gestures, you know. But it worked. There were two people that got up there before I did, you know, and then he motioned. And they were up there quick, you know. And I did get to spend a little bit of time going both sitting down and getting back up. And he got out on his knees. And, you know, he didn't do that with everyone. He just slung that scarf out, you know, kissed them, slung the scarf out. But I didn't think anything of it about pulling the scarf. When I touched the scarf, it was just real slick.
Okay.
And it just slid off real easy. Michael was saying, we were going through the book, and there's 4 pictures that kind of tell the story of how this all happened. But these were the 2 ones I want to frame all of them in 16 by 20s and have enough wall space anyway. And so after we got it straight, I just went up there and I blinked the light. And it lit up. And when it lit up, he lit up. And that's my favorite picture of all 4 of them,
Wow.
of course.
That one there?
Yeah. But I didn't have anything planned. I was just going to get to the stage and hopefully get a kiss and a scarf. But I was nervous, of course. Everybody is, you know. Right. Because somebody you've admired all your life, and you're actually going to be able to touch them. And if you'll look in that picture there, I put my hand immediately down his leg.
I see that.
And I said, because I wanted to say, are you really real? You know. And that was what that was about. But it just, the way he was squatted down, you just had all that, able to do all that. It's like 4 AA batteries, and it was rigged up with a wire, and the wire went to the it was just a little bitty light bulb. But when it was dark, you could see it on that front row, you know, when you blink it. So that's kind of what it was all about.
Almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And I bet you it's exciting for you to stand right here, literally. I mean, right here in the spot. So.
And I got to sit in the same seat for 2 years in a row. I got up at the stage at the same time. He was singing the same song both years in a row. You know, that's just real rare.
Well, we've got the picture from that, 1976. So we'll show that one up. I don't know if it's going to show up in the film. But so there's your ticket again. There's your blue scarf. You got a blue scarf that time.
I did.
And but that was out of the 2, probably that was your favorite night, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They were both pretty favorite.
Pretty
because
special.
That guard moved. You can see his shoulder in the picture there. And he moved out of the chair. He was sitting right here in front of me, and I had already asked him before the show. I said, if I'm able to get to the stage, you let me get to the stage? And he said, oh yeah, if there's no big crowd, I'll let you get to the stage.
Wow.
And so when he saw me come up there, he just got out of his chair and let me stand up in it.
That's nice. That's nice.
And I was really afraid I was going to fall. But I wouldn't get up there now for nothing. But back then, you know, you're young. It's no big deal.
Right.
So, and I don't know how I become with that scarf. I think he handed me that scarf.
Okay.
Exactly. But that plaque that I gave him, again, my ex-husband he made it, and it had Elvis's first album, if you'll notice, the pink and green, which was Elvis Presley album, and then he put Elvis in the bicentennial red, white, and blue because it was a bicentennial year, and then the Civic Center sign. It said Elvis 76.
Oh, wow.
Von Braun Civic Center on it.
That's nice.
So he still got that, or Graceland has it, or it's in the garbage or whatever.
Right.
But he handed me the button back after all that, and I was kind of glad I had it because it would have got thrown in the garbage for sure.
Well, I was proud to touch it because, every now and then you get to run across something that Elvis touched, and it's pretty cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. Keith wanted to know why I took it apart. I said, well, that button was just so hard with all that agglomeration on it to stick it up anywhere,
Well, I just knew that we wanted you to share your story, and I'm glad we got it on film because that was an important part of history. That's because it was, it was photographed, and you still have all the memorabilia from that night. So this is awesome to come back almost 50 years later and get it all captured. So thanks for taking the time out to share it with us.
Well, I had the first pictures of those. I sold them to somebody, and then I knew where I could get copies of them. It was the same negative, and I sold the first two that I had to two separate people, frames and all.
Wow.
And they asked me one time, they said, what would you take for it? I think I sold them for $50.
Wow.
For each picture. Different people bought them,
Right.
And then I got in touch with Derek. I said, make me two more.
Yeah.
And it wasn't no big deal. And then I framed them together instead of separately. I had them separate like that one at first. And then Keith said, why don't you put them together? And I said, well, that's a good idea. And I wished I had put the button inside the frame, but I don't know if it would have fit without taking the clasp off.
Yeah.
But,
well, Marsha, thank you so much for sharing this story. I love the stories within the story, and this is definitely one of them, so thank you for sharing.
Well, there's lots of stories where people got to the stage and stuff.
Right.
Mine is just one of a million.
Right.
But hopefully you'll find more people that have stories.
That's our goal. That's our goal. So thank you, Marsha. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'd like to introduce Bennie Jacks, a fan who attended 3 of the 1975 shows and both 76 shows. Here she is sharing a story about a friend of hers and an interesting story that ended up in the newspaper.
And then I said, well, we found it in the newspaper where a young lady fell off a balcony during the show in 1975,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And so we were talking about it last night, and you said, well, I can proof positive that story because it was your friend.
It's my friend. She's my neighbor too. She's Teresa. Her name was Teresa Thomas at the time. She's Teresa Gaffin now. Okay. And she's a real estate agent here in Huntsville. So she was in the balcony right behind the stage, and so when Elvis right up there.
So right up there.
Yes, there was seating right up there where that's open area right now.
So where that glass is, there was even seating there.
And the stage was really big and really high, and so the place was sold out. So they put everybody in every seat. So she was there, and she said as soon as Elvis came out and he was walking around the stage and he was waving to everybody at the back of the stage and what have you, she said all of a sudden the people in the area behind her kept pushing forward to try to, to see better or to reach Elvis. And the next thing she knew, she was flying over the concrete barrier that was in front of that. And she said luckily she landed on both feet. And about that time, Elvis turned around and said, oh my gosh, what happened? And so he came over there, and the guards came over, rushed over to make sure she was okay. And she said she did. She was okay. And Elvis pulled off his scarf. It was a blue scarf. Gave her the scarf and gave her a kiss. And the security people escorted her back to her seat. But yes, it's a thousand wonders she didn't get hurt.
Wow.
But yeah, she landed on her feet and got a scarf and a kiss. And yes,
isn't that amazing?
I know, just right there.
That is amazing.
Those concerts were so electrifying and so awe-inspiring.
Right.
You were there, you saw it, you witnessed it, but then again, when the concert was over, you were like, oh, did I really see what I just saw? You know?
Right.
Most of you have already met Elvis photographer George Hill from our 2-part series where we took him to Mobile, Alabama, where he saw every show Elvis did in Mobile. Just like in Mobile, George was at every Huntsville show and even shook Elvis's hand not once but twice. Once during the May 31st afternoon show and a second time at the airport when Elvis was leaving. Here's him explaining how he got to shake Elvis's hand at the airport.
Myself and there were two other females. One of them had a getaway car, and she had perfected the chasing Elvis, whether it's from an airport or hotel or wherever. You know, we left the show about 3 songs before we knew it would end, so we could get to the airport. And so we got out there, and there was already a big crowd there, and the police were out there keeping everybody back, and they had like a piece of asphalt wide enough for a car, way out, and it turned right, perpendicular, and went way out there, about I'd say 150 yards at least, and his jet was sitting there, ready to go. Everything was set, and they had let the TV station go out there. So anyway, pretty soon the limo comes by, and Elvis was in, comes, right in front of us. And there was a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
So it had to go down about almost a block, and then it takes a right, and it goes out to where his plane was sitting. When that limo passed where we were standing, there was nothing but a green grass field out there. And they had, cops about every 20, 30 feet. And when the limo passed with Elvis in it, I broke into a dead run across it looked about the size of a football field, grass. And I knew none of those guys could catch me, those cops. Anyway, I ran all the way to the plane, and ran right up to the steps. He had gotten out of the limo and walked about halfway up the steps, and he turned around. TV station had their big spotlight on, and Dick Grove was in there, his head of security, and he did motion like that, stop, and I said, hey, I just want to shake his hand. And he looked at me for a second and stepped back. Anyway, Elvis was on the steps that go up into the plane, and he had just waved at the camera, and all that stuff. Anyway, I reached my hand up, and he shook my hand, and I watched him walk all the way to the back of the plane where he had a bedroom back there.
As a surprise for our guests, we had a mini concert using audio from the shows that happened in this building 49 years ago, roughly where they were sitting for the May 31st afternoon show. To reiterate, Keith, Marsha, and George all had an interaction with Elvis during the May 31st afternoon show. Again, neither of them knowing each other. We were sure to put up the photos of each interaction on the screen, so all of them could relive that memory 49 years later. One of the more memorable moments for me was seeing my favorite concert photo of Elvis that happened to be taken by George here in Huntsville up on the big screen with George looking on. For both of Elvis's visits to Huntsville, he stayed at the Hilton Hotel located across the street from the arena.
We always like to include the hotel information when we visit a city where Elvis performed. And in the case of Huntsville, when Elvis performed here, he stayed at 401 Williams Avenue, which is right over there. And we'll include a photo of what the building looked like during Elvis's day. But as you can see, it's now been torn down and it's now called the Eclipse Apartment Complex. That's where the hotel stood, and it was torn down recently. Well, a couple years ago it was torn down, and in place of it is that apartment complex. We know this because we carry the tour sheets for each city, and we can rely on those for good information on the address and what the building was named at the time. So we just wanted to include that there. Even though it's been torn down, we still wanted to include the footprint of where it was.
We'd like to thank Bruce, Bennie, Keith, Marsha, and George for making the trip to Huntsville and being a part of this memorable experience.
I remember you.
We'd also like to thank Samantha and Maddie for their incredible hospitality and helping make this a wonderful trip for all of us.
It's gone. It's okay. I'll be lonely.
We also wanted to give a shout out to Daryl Burke from Channel 19 News for hanging out with us all day and doing a story with Keith, Marsha, and George. Thanks to Big Ed's Pizza for hosting our dinner the night before our tour. This restaurant is where many folks from local Elvis fan clubs would have their meetings.
Your voice as soft as a warm summer breeze. Your sweet laughter, mornings after, ever after, I'll remember you. Take your arms someday.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, as well as follow us on all of our social media accounts using the link in the description below.